Welcome along, everybody. We are gathered here today to rank from worst to best the 20 managers competing in next season's Premier League. We did this for the Championship the other day. Got some really good debate going on that video. So here we go for the top tier. Like the Championship, I am ranking based on these managers' CVs today. Yes, I will get lots of comments telling me what these managers are about to do and how good they're about to be. But as much as you might not want to hear it, that might not happen. So we'll just do it based on what they've achieved in the game so far. That is the definition of list there, guys. A number of connected items or names written or printed. Connected items, okay? It's about ranking everybody against each other. So if you want to comment on one manager, which of course will inevitably be the manager of the team you support, then fine. All I'm going to do is ask you for a top 5, a top 10, a bottom 5, etc., etc., so we can make the comparisons. And finally, try your best, keep calm, be polite. We're looking for reason over emotion to have a good debate in our list, which starts with number 20. That is Fabian Hürzeler of Brighton, and he is bottom just because he's barely been a manager for 5 minutes. Knowing Brighton, he'll probably be Real Madrid manager this time next year, but he's only 31 years old, 1 and a bit seasons in Bundesliga 2. Again, we're not going on potential, we're going on career. Yes, he's got 1 promotion, but that pales into insignificance compared to what a lot of managers who are in the Premier League have done. I'm sure he'll climb up the rankings knowing Brighton, but right now on his CV, we're going to put him at the bottom, 1 place below Russell Martin. I'm going to get accused of being biased against the South Coast. I've been accused of being biased about everything else. Russ Martin was really, really hyped and never really finished very high in any of the leagues he was in with MK or Swansea. He's now got a promotion and a playoff win with Southampton. So I think I can put him just ahead of Hürzeler. If he keeps Southampton in the Premier League, he's going right up this list. Maybe he's going above Enzo Maresca. I'm going to get some blowback from this because Enzo Maresca is the manager of a big club, Chelsea. But we're not talking about how big the club anyone's manager is. We're talking about what have they done in their career. Maresca, he's been a manager for 1 season. Yes, he won the Championship with Leicester. Again, that pales into insignificance compared to what some other managers have done. And he did win that with maybe the best squad and the most money and a potential breach of FFP that will probably get punished next season rather than last season. So we'll see how he does. Chelsea's a bit of a madhouse. So if he gets them moving, he's going to fly right up this list. But he's 18th for his work as a manager right now. And in 17th, one very dear to my heart as an Ipswich fan, Kieran McKenna. Maybe you could argue he's the kind of hottest up-and-coming manager in English football. That's great with the back-to-back promotions, but of course, he's never managed a game in the Premier League. And I think more than anybody, if he goes from League One to the Championship to the Premier League and turns Ipswich into a stable club there, well, how high? Sky's the limit, really, isn't it? But at the moment, we've got to judge him on having never managed a game at the top level, and I've got him in 17th. Right, we've finally got some Premier League experience now. Stevie Cooper, who really good in the EFL. I know we're not really measuring EFL quality here, but he took Nottingham Forest out and in very testing circumstances with a complete squad overhaul, did keep them in the division, left mid-season last season, okay, wasn't going great, and they are still there. So I think Steve Cooper has more credit than any of the other managers at Premier League level that we've spoken about. Maybe a points deduction, as we mentioned, coming in for Leicester. If he keeps them in the division, he's going to be going into the conversation as a proven Premier League manager and probably going to get a few more jobs thereafter in the future. Steve Cooper, 16th, below Andoni Iraola. Second tier promotion for him in Spain, so similar to some of the people below him in that regard. But he just bossed it last season for Bournemouth, didn't he? You kind of think, who's this guy they've brought in? And they've been 15th the season before. Ooh, are they going to struggle? He went up 3 places and took Bournemouth to 12. So really, judging on that one Premier League season, excellent job so far, and I think it eclipses anything anybody else in the list so far has done. Iraola 15th. And in 14th, I mean, this is all very incestuous because the manager he replaced at Bournemouth is Gary O'Neill. And another one who a lot of people had pretty low expectations for. Bournemouth 15th, Wolves 14th, with, as I say, little expectations. 2 seasons, and he's delivered in both of them, Gary O'Neill, who looks a safe pair of hands if you're in that bunch of teams that is probably not going to trouble the top 6, maybe. The also-rans, perhaps, in the Premier League. Gary O'Neill knows how to get you to the end of the season and keep you in the Premier League. He's 14th. And in 13th is Oliver Glasner. Okay, he's not been in the Premier League very long at all, but he does have a trophy on his CV. It says down on my notes, I'm looking there, Eintracht Frankfurt Europa League winner. So we're now into people who win trophies in top leagues and in European competition. I think 7 wins in 13 as well as Palace manager. He has set the bar very, very high for next season. And even though he's not been there as long as some of the people I've got below him, I'm going to put him up in 13th. Below, Julen Lopetegui, who confuses the hell out of me because I've been doing my research. This guy's had some amazing jobs. Spain manager, Real Madrid manager, Porto manager, I think, as well. He hasn't won anything. So I'm not sure whether this guy's a brilliant manager or a brilliant interviewer. I suppose if we've got Wolves fans, they can tell us in the comments. He took Wolves to 13th, though, and given that CV, I've bumped him all the way up to 12th in my list. Prepared to be wrong about that one because something doesn't quite add up with the jobs this guy gets and maybe the output afterwards. I don't know. You tell me. Maybe being completely unfair on Mr. Lopetegui at West Ham there. In 11th place, I've gone for Thomas Frank. Playoff final. Well, basically, he took over Brentford in, I think they ended up finishing 11th in his first portion of the season. Playoff final. Premier League 3 years in a row now, and he's just established that club quite brilliantly. Big links to some big jobs as well this summer indeed. Going to have to, I think, maybe innovate a bit now at Brentford to move on to team number 2 and keep this run going longer than 3 years. But I think he's done a really, really tremendous job with what would be a traditionally small club in English football. And they look very, very comfortable, don't they, with the big boys. Brentford. Look over my shoulder, by the way. Just quick pause for the cause and you'll see a beautiful display there from the lovely people at Beer52. You can get that case of 8 beers there for free. You just got to pay the postage, which is £5.95. You can get craft beer or dark beer, beautifully curated by the people at Beer52. As I say, completely free. Just got to cover the postage. £5.95. You get some bar snacks, as you can see behind me. Copy of Ferment magazine. Loads of people have done this deal. You too can do the same by heading over to www.beer52, that's 52.com/bloom, www.beer52.com/bloom, a free case of beer if you cover the postage. £5.95. We are going in to our top 10, where I've got Nuno Espirito Santo, and let's be honest, this is completely for what he did at Wolves, where he won the championship. Okay, bit financially doped, we think, in the championship, given what Wolves lost there. But 7th and 13th up in the Premier League. Spurs for a cup of tea. He's in there at Forest now, guided them to survival. Let's see what he does next season. Will he last next season under Mr. Marianakis? But for the work at Wolves, I've got to have him up there in my top 10. Just below, Marco Silva. And look, I know you can argue Hull, he's in and out in a flash. Watford, Everton then didn't really work out. So lots of Premier League experience, but not necessarily totally delivered. He has totally delivered at Fulham, where he basically built a Premier League team whilst in the Championship. And then comfortable 10th and 13th the next 2 seasons. You can debate with me in the comments. I think that eclipses the people below him in the list, given Fulham's kind of yo-yo status. He's just completely knocked that for 6, hasn't he? And got them comfortably 2 seasons up at Premier League level. Right, more trophy winners now. And let's not be snobby about it, because these trophies are in Australia and Scotland, but plenty of league titles and cups for Ange Postecoglou. But straight into the top 5 as well with Spurs. It helps that he's very charismatic on TV and incredibly likeable. If you consistently have Spurs up there in the top 6, and obviously the holy grail, if you're Spurs managers, can you win a blooming trophy? Because it doesn't happen very often there. But I think he's straight up after 1 season in English football to number 8 in my list. And there is Sean Dyche. Now, people are fairly snobby about 4-4-2 and being direct and head it, kick it, defend and get clean sheets and drills are okay. All of that good stuff that is the kind of perceived wisdom about Sean Dyche. I just feel if I'm bumping Nuno Santo up to 10th on the Wolves job, then look at what Dyche did with Burnley. 2 promotions, 6 straight seasons in the Premier League. They finished 7th once and 10th once as well. And he's in at Everton in complete carnage last season with all the points deduction. Comfortably safe, weren't they? He is just a very good, very sturdy Premier League football manager, which is why he's up in 7th spot there. And into our top 6, and he's been talked about as the future England manager, Eddie Howe. Whatever league Eddie Howe is in, he's normally at the top of it. Finished 2nd in League 2 with Bournemouth, 2nd in League 1 with Bournemouth, 1st in the Championship with Bournemouth, then stabilised them in the Premier League, and he finished 4th in the Premier League with Newcastle. Bit of a drop down. He's still not that old as well, particularly in terms of football managers who go on for a couple of decades, couldn't he, if he wanted to? Eddie Howe. We'll see what the links with the England job bring, but he is in my top 6. He's just lacking a trophy to go any higher, isn't he, Eddie Howe? Arne Slot has got a trophy. In fact, he's got a couple of trophies. He won the Dutch League with Feyenoord. So not only are we now in trophy categories, and I'm not diminishing Ange Postecoglou winning the Aussie League and the Scottish League, but this is the Dutch League now with Arne Slot. And he won the Dutch Cup as well. I think with AZ in the Netherlands, it was very impressive to be in the top 3 all the time. With Feyenoord, a little bit different, but still winning the title. Mighty, mighty impressive. And again, I'm not talking about potential, I'm talking about CV. But on his CV, he's got the Liverpool job. A massive, massive job. And you're probably no slouch if you've done that. So Arne Slot is in my top 5. And there is Erik ten Hag, finishing the Dutch connection. Now, I'm sure we'll get a lot of emotional people. If they wanted to base this completely on last season, they'd probably have Erik ten Hag way, way lower. But he does deliver. And I do think there's a certain amount of Manchester United being a bit chaotic that works against him. Bit Marmite, but 3 titles and 2 cups with Ajax. And he got really far in the Champions League as well with them, didn't he? And whatever you say about Man United, he's had them in 3rd once and won the FA Cup and the EFL Cup as well. So there is an outcome there with Ten Hag, although I do think now with the new ownership fully in at Manchester United, they're going to need to see something this season for this to go into a long tenure at Old Trafford. But I think what he's done in his managerial career eclipses all bar 3 people who are managing in the Premier League. And one of them is Mikel Arteta. Now, calm down, because I'm not doing this completely on trophies, because Erik ten Hag has won more trophies than Mikel Arteta, not just in Dutch football, in English football as well. 1 FA Cup, I believe, for Arteta. I'm going to count those Community Shields. But I think what Arteta's done at Arsenal is really, really impressive and warrants him being up in 3rd. In respects of probably in most other generations. And I know in most other generations he wouldn't be as good as he is because he worked with Pep Guardiola. But in most other generations, he would have won a league title by now, wouldn't he? And going against the freak show that is Man City and Haaland and De Bruyne and Pep, I think he's done a really, really good job rebuilding Arsenal there. It would need probably a couple more medals and trophies to really solidify, but they're going to come surely at Arsenal. And I think Arteta is maybe the next elite manager in English football. But who is he below in second? Unai Emery. Now, a lot of people are going to say, Ben, what the hell are you talking about? Emery was at Arsenal. Arteta has done better at Arsenal than Emery did. And yes, that's true. But there's context that he got the hospital pass of replacing Arsene Wenger. And then there's the rest of this guy's career. And you've got to put him up just on his medals here. 4 Europa Leagues. He won everything in France at top level with PSG. Villa, straight in there after Stevie Gerrard. Proportion of a season, 7th. Last season, 4th. This guy is obviously just a superb football manager. And I think that eclipses everybody bar one manager in the Premier League. I wonder who that could be. And I'm not even going to talk about Pep Guardiola. I'm going to talk about making these lists. Because normally when I do this, it's quite hard. And I make loads and loads of notes and, look at what everybody's won and, push little bits of paper about on my desk. But not only is it, in my opinion, so blindingly obvious that Pep Guardiola is number one, I actually think he's number one by miles. I don't think there's anybody close because he's literally the only manager managing in the Premier League to have won the Premier League. Now, sort of Klopp has gone and Conte and Mourinho aren't around anymore. I just think he's miles and miles clear. And I'll put it as a challenge to you. If anybody in the comments can give me a reason, I'm sure we'll get a 115 charges reason why Pep shouldn't be number one, then let me know. But I just think it's a slam dunk home run. He is clearly the best manager in the Premier League. Get involved with your comments. Again, we are ranking based on these managers' CVs today, not their potential. So if you're an upset, I don't know, who have I got down the bottom? Brighton fan, Ipswich fan, Southampton fan, Chelsea fan. It's fine. Come back. Come back later. If these managers do deliver on what you think their potential is, up the list they go. Again, please with your comments, we get a lot of things that say, it's a joke that you've got this one manager here. Okay, fine. Who are you putting them above or below and why? And please try and comment on managers that aren't only the manager of your team that you support. The exercise here is taking all 20 and how would you rank them from worst to best? And if you don't want to do it based on CV, that's fine. You can make your own list and say this is my list based on potential. Just keep it calm, for God's sakes. Be polite, and we're trying to have a debate. I know you love your club, and I know you love the manager of the club you support, and I know you want them to be the best manager your club's ever had. That's great. We all want that, but we're talking in the reality of the universe that we exist in right now. What have these managers done? And that's the rankings. If you want a bit more of this stuff, if you want to bite my head off in the comments, not just about Premier League managers, but about Championship managers, then click off over here. We did exactly the same video. And by God, you get a bonus. You get 24 of them. We've ranked all of the Championship managers from worst to best as well. Let it rip, guys. Let it burn. Get involved in the comments. Get your manager rankings in from worst to best. 20 managers working in the Premier League next season.